Welcome, everyone, to another episode of Get Real with Jack and Cindy. I'm Cindy Morrison.
And I'm Jack Wallace. Welcome, welcome. We have a very special guest today. Hi, Sheryl. This is Sheryl Chinowth. For anyone who doesn't know, this is Sheryl Chinowth.
Of Chinowth and Cohen.
Yes, we've talked about you in every podcast. Sheryl says this, or Sheryl said that, or how you really shaped both of our real estate career and coaching us and doing things. And so it seems appropriate to have you come and be on the podcast. So we're so thrilled that you're here, and we're going to depart some wisdom for all of us.
And we don't just see Sheryl when we invite her on a podcast. That's one of the things that I love about a locally owned and family owned brokerage. We see you all the time. You are accessible. And I think that is huge.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, well, I enjoy it. You know, real estate's my life. I was literally born into a real estate family. And, we talked about real estate around the table like most families talk about religion and politics, So that was our religion. That was our politics. It was real estate. So, and then Lee and Taylor, third generation, they grew up in the same way. So they have their wives have a rule like my other brothers and sisters, their spouses. We had after 15 minutes at Thanksgiving and Christmas of real estate talk, had to stop.
We're done.
So you go like 20 minutes, and then someone goes, "Anybody want to go for a walk?"
Because we got more to cover. We got to talk about this.
We still do that now.
So let's talk about from the dinner table with your parents growing up in real estate to the mogul you are now. What did that road look like?
I don't know that I've ever been called mogul before, but okay. It really was, I worked with my family business for 15 years, and it became one of the largest in the areas that we were covering. It was in Illinois. And when I moved to Tulsa, I helped with the family business there. I knew everyone's jobs. Anyone went on vacation. I was the bookkeeper, I was the closer, I was the broker, I was the trainer. I did most of the classes for the company. And I was a reload director when the reload director was out. So I learned every single job. And it's kind of what I did with Lee and Taylor is we started them out literally. Leland came out of medical school and was front desk person in Owasso. I mean, we said, if you don't...
welcome.
Here's your minimum wage job for next year. But if you don't get and understand everything from the bottom up, there's no way to run it the way you would want it to be run. It's kind of learning how to micromanage, and then you don't have to micromanage. You know how to pick the right people for the right jobs and the right positions.
Yeah, that makes sense. And it's funny because I literally have been here long enough that I remember the guys building their way up. In fact, it was funny. We had Leland on a couple of episodes ago, and we had to disclose how much that you used to tell us to stop fighting because we were jokingly fighting all the time. So it's sort of funny how it's like this whole thing has been such an interesting journey for me personally to watch the family dynamic and the growth as a company, but also watching them go from boys really to men to really executives. So it's really, and I know that's got to be hard for you too, in a way. Like, I think coming from a family business, it's an interesting dynamic.
It's fun. My dad, when I worked with him, those 15 years I worked with him, and he would say, "You have no idea how much fun this is. It is so much fun working with you every day." And I'm like, "Really? Because this is hard."
I'm miserable, but thanks.
It's contract.
Appreciate you having fun.
Hey, if we mess this up, we lose our license, right?
And I'm responsible.
And I didn't really get it until my boys both came in the business. And when they came into the business, I was like, "Oh, this is so much fun." And like my kids, they ran around the offices. And I can remember I walked in, my grandchildren are in offices now, and somebody would be watching them, me usually, but someone would be watching them while Lee and Taylor have to run to an appointment or something. And I can remember when Lee and Taylor were young. And I remember one time I came in, and my brother we had this real tall octagon fish tank in the lobby. Mm-hmm. And I came in from appointment, and here's Taylor, and my brother's got him upside down, holding him by his knees and his feet, and he's got his hands hands inside of the octagon fishing tank trying to catch fish with his hands. I'm like, oh my gosh.
Only with family.
Yeah.
I remember when I worked one summer when I was in college for my dad, and we were building a restaurant in 𝐒𝐡𝐞𝐫𝐞𝐝, and so we would get up every morning and we'd get in the car at like 6:37, and we would drive to 𝐒𝐡𝐞𝐫𝐞𝐝. Well, I'd of course go out with my friends and have fun and do stuff till who knows how late. And so talking to me, we get in the car. So finally we had a rule where he could only start talking to me once we passed a certain restaurant on Highway 75. And it was always so funny because, I mean, the second that front bumper hit that restaurant, he was like, so baby, how are you? What have you been up to? But it was, I look back on that now and it's such a treasure to have had those times. And also to really, it was such a cool thing for me personally, I'm sure for your kids and for you watching your dad, just watching what they go through to get where they are. I mean, my parents have been investors in real estate since I was little too. And, you know, I remember them buying the first rental house when I was, I think 11 or 12. And then, you know, we just recently sold that like 2 or 3 years ago. And it was crazy how much what they bought it for and what they sold it for all those years, and then have that income. But it was just watching their pride level as they would, you know, build their portfolio and do that. And so it's always so interesting. Like, it's from the kid's perspective, you just kind of assume that's just the way it is. But then as an adult looking back on it, it's such a cool thing that you got to witness. And like you said, every dinner was a board meeting. Like, we would go to Charlie Mitchell's and eat dinner every night. 'Cause my mom worked just like my dad. She did the books, but it was like literally every night. But now I listen to the Business Channel. That's my entertainment. Right. Because that's familiar to me, hearing
that mindset.
Yeah. So I'm so grateful for that.
And I'm second generation realtor as well.
That's true.
So that's interesting that we all got into the family business. So
it's there's a book out there called The Outliers. I don't know if you've read
love it.
Okay, so that's kind of what I am. When I read that book, I'm like, well, this perfectly makes sense why, you know, I understand
Malcolm Gladwell, right? Yeah, Malcolm
I understand real estate inside and out so well is because I was born into it at a time, you know, there weren't franchises, you know, there weren't these big, the industry was just starting to bring on, you know, which, you know, there's so many multiple types of companies out there. And so from coming on early on before most of those things ever existed, I got to watch them and really study every single bit of them. So I was born at a certain time into a certain family. And when you read that, that's kind of what that book Outlier is. And so after working family business, though, I didn't want to own one. So I knew the top agents make more money than the owners, you know, so I just wanted to be the top agent. And my dad only made it to Tulsa once. And I picked him up at the airport and we were going down 169. And he said, I'd only been here like 6 months. And he goes, where are you going to open your real estate company? And I said, Dad, I'm sorry, I'm never going to own a real estate company.
Never say never.
I want to make money.
I said, I now know after working 15 years, the top agents make more money than anyone else. And they don't have all of the
overhead.
All the overhead and
and
everything.
babysitting and responsibilities and brokerage license and all that.
Staff insurance and payroll and all, you know, all of those things.
Sounds good.
Yeah. So that's what I did. I just worked until, you know, I became the #1 agent in real estate company here in Tulsa. And it just kind of, you know, they say God opens doors, but for me, it was God closed doors. And so many doors had been shut to a point I was just standing with nothing left to do but open my own company, because it's definitely not what I planned or what I wanted to do. Idea, this is what God's plan was, that both the boys would be in it and I would get to enjoy grandchildren, run around offices, and so it's worked out really, really well. So
what is that meme with Joan Crawford where it says, if one door closes, open it again, that's how doors work? I love that. Like, oh yeah, just open it again. Maybe it's a different door, but just open the door. So a little bit of backup. I mean, full disclosure, we have been friends a long, long time, very close friends. And there's been many, many times we've talked for hours into the late night.
Oh my God, he
about
fell
real
asleep
estate.
on me one night.
That's
I mean-
rare too for me.
The phone hit the floor, and I went, I think he just fell asleep.
I did. Yeah, I had maybe had a sleeping pill, but it wasn't because it wasn't an interesting conversation. But the one thing that I think is interesting, we were talking about all this, and like what it was like, because you were the only girl in your family too, in a time when being a woman.
Only one in real estate, yeah.
Yeah,
Right.
that's right. You have a sister,
Sister,
but the
but
only
she's-
one that was in the business. And so, how has it been as a woman in this industry? Because I think the one thing for me that's very, very interesting watching, because I got my license when I was 18 and worked for a friend of the family who was a woman who had been widowed, and she had 2 young boys, and so that's how she built herself up. And she was that. So it's been an interesting thing for me to see our business be such a good business for women,
Mhm.
but it also has been. It's still been a very sexist business in a lot of ways too through the years, and I feel like we're coming out of that. But like, how has that been for you as a woman from beginning to now building your business?
It's it's for a very long time been about 70% of the realtors out there are women. So it's a heavily dominated, and women can control their own career and their own destiny. So it really does draw, women into this industry. They can be very successful and still be room mom,
Mhm.
and I never missed. Taylor played on the tennis team, and Leland played on the basketball team in high school and throughout their school years, and I never missed a game. So you can still have a full life as a mother and be a great realtor.
You may still be working at 11 p.m. catching up on what you didn't do when you were at the school play, but
Right.
you can get it all
And
done.
I think that's important for
Mhm.
people to hear that, because I think we have a tendency to go, oh, people want to work their own hours, ha, 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 ha. But what you just said, I mean, look at where you have built your life, your business, and where you are, and you did not sacrifice those things.
Right.
So it's important to remember that
Mhm.
a lot of those are your choices that you make in your career, and if that's a priority, you just have to prioritize that and maybe
Right.
let that go. Okay, that's good.
Well, and then we put in, one of the things I learned as I grew and grew and grew in the business was the need to have assistance. But then having assistance can tie you down to where
Mhm.
you're spending so much of your time, instead of talking with buyers and sellers and building your business,
Yep.
trying to figure out what you need your assistant to do the next day, or your marketing, or you're working to keep your assistant working. And so when we set up the company, I just, I realized by the time you get to 10 million, you need a little bit of help. So we put a whole program in place for our realtors. So
Which
they
is
can
a lifesaver. Lifesaver.
But that makes it where you can still have a life. You can
Right.
still be able to do things, and you don't have to tell a client, no, I can't make it, or I'm already booked at that time. There's ways to keep your business growing.
Mhm.
And
For all those people that have heard from other entities, oh, what are you paying for whenever you're paying into your broker, your percentage or whatever? That's, to me, that's huge. Like,
Yep.
I mean, and it almost like makes me laugh when they say that, 'cause I'm like, I don't want to manage all those things
Mhm.
for the extra little bit. I mean, like I'm happy to do, because the administrative part is, if you want to be an administrator, own the company.
right.
Otherwise, do what it's so brilliant.
Well, and I've
So
always said,
brilliant.
if you're paying 100%, or you're getting 100% of your commission, what is your brokerage doing for you? Like, we
Right.
have a marketing department, we have an admin help. I mean, I just feel like you get what you give if you get with the right brokerage.
There's no way I
Right.
could come out ahead personally
Mhm.
when I look at that, and pay somebody to keep them working, to pay their insurance, to pay my
Yep.
insurance, to do, I mean, all that. There's no way. There's just no way that it would come out. Or if you end up taking 2 or 3 months off for whatever reason, I have no overhead,
Yeah.
but I would have to keep that going.
Mhm.
Otherwise, to me,
Yeah.
it
It's
makes
much
so much
easier
sense.
just to
Sorry,
call in and say, I need
That's
somebody
a-
to go do this for me.
it
And know-
really is.
And know they're trained the way so that they're not, stepping into your business. They're an assistant that says, that's a Cindy question. That's a chat question.
I think one of my favorite things that I remember from you is when we were having a conversation one time, and I was asking about, you were, in some companies, the production per year, and that's how you evaluate or that's when you get your split changes. And I was saying that to you because that's what it was like where I came from. And you said, we don't do that, because if that person has that problem, I got to get in there and figure out what's wrong
Right.
and help them get back, because something's going on. And I had never, ever
Yeah,
heard that
if they
before.
reach the top tier, I've worked at other real estate companies before we started my own, and you'd have someone. I remember an agent whose son was hurt badly, and she had to take 6 months off. He was in bed, and she had to help her son. And next thing you know, the broker comes in and says, "Well, your volume's dropped, so we're dropping you back." So I always thought, if I ever did own my own company, I would, if someone's volume dropped, I'm going to call them and ask them why. They're not a lesser agent.
Mhm.
They've got something personally going on, or they've got some life changes. And
when I moved my mom here, I mean, that was a difficult
Mhm.
year for me. I couldn't work as much. I needed to make sure she was safe and secure.
I think that's a difference between just a corporate company.
Mm-hmm.
It's a difference between, in my opinion,
People, not numbers.
than a family-owned company.
Mhm.
We take so many. I mean, like you've all heard me say before, we don't have a lot of cousins and relatives and everything here. It was just the four of us until they got the boys got married and had children. All of the agents became our aunts and uncles and cousins, and I always say the crazy person at the family reunion.
What? You looked at me when you said that. Thanks.
She did. I saw the side eye go that
Wow,
way. I
Cindy
did.
didn't get that look. I got that. I'll take it.
Yeah.
I like that.
But we feel deeply. We feel deeply.
And that cuts both ways, I know too. Like, it's disappointing whenever somebody doesn't, like, you do a lot for people, and sometimes they make decisions that are, that are against that. And I hate when I see you go through that, because I know how you take it so personally,
Mhm.
because you really, really care. And you think it's almost like I've seen in the past where you're like, you're upset, but you're upset because they're making a decision that isn't in their best interest.
Right.
And they
Mhm.
think it is, and they're being sold something,
yes.
and you can't let them know that, and you really care about them, but you got to let them go. I mean,
Right.
like,
Yeah.
they got to do what they got to do.
Right. And and then you watch the volume drop, and you watch what they get into, and you're just like,
Don't do it. But I didn't tell you. I mean,
yeah, you have to
there's only so
you have
much
to
you
be
can
so
say.
careful, and so much of what
I
you
don't
have
think
to
other
do.
people think
You
that
work
would be
for 'em.
satisfying because you didn't do, but it's not. It's just like, why did they do that?
There are other good companies out there too, though. It's just they're different buses. It's what kind of bus do you want to be on? Do you want to be in just strictly numbers, or do you want to be where access to all of the things that we have? And it's just how you want to live your life as with your career,
Mhm.
And I feel like that's because I've done this for so long and watched so many top producing agents and what they went through and how their careers evolved, that I feel like when we opened, I was able to develop. And also, I feel like I know we have the best education out there, because it comes from generations of real estate, and this is how it works. And as our industry, everyone thinks our industry is changing or going to change, you find you go back to real estate. There's the basics in real estate, and
So let's dive into that. When you decided, okay, I am going to
Here we
own my
go.
own brokerage. I am going to own my own brokerage. I know I want it to be family oriented. The marketing, the trading. Let's talk about what a lot of those things looked like for you that you wanted to make bigger and better.
Right. Well, as far as marketing, it's really hard. Here's what I saw in marketing. I saw agents out showing houses. I'd have a listing, and I'd see a top producing agent, and they would come to show the house, and I would be showing the house for them because they'd be in the backyard trying to figure out what's the deadline I can get this done, and when can I get this done, and how do I do this, and they were trying to market their sellers' homes while showing homes.
Yeah.
And it's too
So
much.
somebody's not getting your full attention, which is both clients.
Right.
Yeah.
And so it was just too much. And after watching that for, our family business,
They were
had
becoming
marketing.
admin, not salesmen.
Yeah, they were doing what you pay people 8 to 5 to work instead of with the commissions that they could be making. Plus, they're leaving their clients walking around in houses while they're trying to figure out what to do. Not saying everybody does that. I just say when you get to a certain level and you've got so much business going on, it's hard to cover it all, and you have to figure. It's hard to scale.
Yeah.
It's hard to scale. So that was one of the first things was what do they need? Okay, so we did this as a family business, and we realized that our top 6 agents doubled their business in 6 months when we took over their marketing. Now, everybody,
Wait, say that one more time.
our top 6 agents on our family business doubled their volume in 6 months after we stepped in as a family and helped them with their marketing.
Mm-hmm.
So when I opened,
Not to mention their quality of life.
right,
I mean,
Yes.
let's be honest.
Mm-hmm.
right,
Not having to worry about all that and
Right.
know that things are slipping
right.
because of that.
And so, and one time, years ago, when I had agents that I had helping me on open houses, so I had for all of them someone that I had an assistant, and I trained them how to do the flyers and what I wanted them to look like. But I had an agent that showed up at an open house with a flyer they'd done themselves. And the seller called me afterwards and said, "Hey, what are you doing right now?"
Let's
What do
talk
you
about
mean?
misspellings and
Because,
quality.
would you come over to my house? I have something I want to show you. Drove over to this really nice home to see a flyer that I was embarrassed. And so, when we opened the company, I knew you have to have, agents think print's dead. It is not dead.
It is
No,
not
It is
dead.
not dead. And I knew you had to have a certain amount in print, and you need flyers, and the flyers need to look well, and you need to be able to have open houses. And as you scale and get bigger, you need to be able to have people to pull from. I think we have 175 for our new constructions. Why so many builders like it here? Their marketing is also covered, but there's 175 agents that are certified in new construction. I know you help teach those classes, Jack.
And I'm certified.
Yeah, yeah. And so I think it's
Again,
It's-
because we believe in education.
right.
Yeah.
It's how do
Our
you
value statement, which
you
we're talking about a lot.
Mhm.
right? How do you pull? How do you make sure? I mean, there's no other place you can sit down at the kitchen table or have a conversation with the seller and say, I don't have to worry about if your house is going to be in a magazine or not, because they got software and they're pulling it and every house is in there and the agents don't have to pay for it. And the magazine's coming off the shelf 2 to 1. I mean, we used to call all, and we still would call. We just don't, because they asked us to quit calling when the magazines were out of racks. We'd go,
Mhm.
"Hey, you didn't fill the rack." And they go, "No, we fill them all the same." So then they told me, "Go and look. When your magazine will be up like everyone else's or half of what everybody else's is," because they said, "Just stand and watch." So finally, after a while, I did. I stood and watched. And what I noticed is they go through the magazines and they flip and put it back, flip and put it back. But when they got to the Elite magazine, they pick it up and they walk out of the store with it. They're going to take it home.
Mhm.
And it's rare that a nice, like a upper end home where a seller will call me and say, I'm going to meet with one of your agents, but I would like to meet with you, that I don't walk in and that magazine's not there. It's on a coffee table or a countertop, and
Mhm.
all of their houses, the agents don't have to stop and even think about it. It's an automatic done. It's all put together and then it's sent out for proof, and you can correct and fix anything that you like, but there's not a lot of corrections that come back because they're pretty good at it.
Yeah.
So, you can't sit down with all of the awards that we've won industry wide and the education that we have and the magazine, the TV show, the access to the owner. I mean, where else
But you have
can
an
you sit down?
aesthetic that you have closely guarded
Mhm.
by the marketing, which is frustrating at times for us that are, because it is like there's such a, we want to keep the brand
There's
and
a
we want
process.
to
Yes.
process it.
Uh,
But the one thing I think is also important to remember, and this is interesting for people that are with our company or with somebody else, there's been a trend towards teams and agents branding themselves away from
Mhm,
the company that they're with.
mhm.
I mean, the signs are getting to where a lot of times it's just that, but then you almost have nothing with the company. I love the fact that Chinowth has made the decision that they are the brand builder,
Mhm.
and so it gives us that ability to use the Chinowth and Cohen brand. So when we walk in a home, people know I love that brand, and yours is even on top of that. I love it. So it's just such an important thing to me. Like, I think that's what I've had to come to realize with that the process is important so that we keep that brand, so people
And the
know
quality. Yep.
who you are when you walk in, that they're going to get a professional brochure, they're going to get the marketing that they deserve. And I think that's huge. I also, back to what you were saying, print is not dead. I think what's so funny is, we're getting to a time now where we're transitioning, and who knows where things will end up. And I think we are transitioning in a lot of ways with AI and with all the different things. But what I'm finding is people want the old school
Mhm.
and the new school.
Mhm.
And if you're not providing both, you're missing the boat.
Well,
because-
you have to reach them where they are. You're not going to pull them into social media if they love to get the newspaper or whatever. You have to go where they're comfortable and market to
Well,
them.
like we were joking last week about the Parade of Homes, that I'm the one who goes and buys the magazine and then uses the QR code on the magazine to get to the app. And she's like, just download the app. But we're all different and we're exactly the same age,
Right.
but it's just how we want to process and how we want to. I like having something in my hand tactically.
Right.
So I think it's important. Plus, when you go into a house, seeing a QR code and seeing something laying on the counter that's very slick and professional.
I can't tell you how often that when I'm out, at a restaurant or shopping or whatever, that how often someone walks up to me from the public and says, I love your branding. I love how you market. I love your company. I was in Utica one day and a woman came up to me and she shook my hand and she said, you don't know who I am, but I have $1.5 million house and I'm going to sell it. Through your company. I don't know which agent yet, but I'm going to sell it through your company because you brought glamour back to real estate.
Oh,
I love that.
Yeah. So
that would make John Sawyer very happy to
It
hear.
would.
He feels like he did. Are you telling me?
Yeah, but I do think that, and that's one of the things I learned studying all the different companies throughout my life is there is a certain amount of business that comes to the company because of the company.
Amen.
And when you start doing every different other color other than your company color, I'm shocked how many black and gold signs are out there now that are with blue and orange companies or red companies or whatever. And they're using black and gold. Which, my marketing experience from college tells me that just makes us look even bigger and better. The more black and gold there is, the more it says that's where you want to be. But it's interesting how much of that, you're
and you even have adapted. I mean, I think it's cool because we've changed our font to be a little more contemporary at times. We've, backed off a little bit on the Laurel. And I mean, but it's always been a consistent thing. The thing I love is that people always, whenever you say we just turned 20, our company just turned 20, and I think I've been here for 18 of them, but they think, oh my God, I thought that was like a 100-year-old company because, and
we have 700 agents. We're in 2 states. I mean, it's not a small mom and pop. It is a mom and pop that has continued to grow. I love that.
And you know what we've always, like in my marketing, what I've always strived for is when you think about like Ralph Lauren. He does contemporary, he does English country, he does French country, he does, rustic, Colorado.
Right.
But if it's Ralph Lauren, it's going to be good.
Right.
Like it's,
right.
it doesn't matter what the style is, it's going to be classic, classy, and good. And I saw an interview with him the other day, and he was wearing a shirt that he bought at Kmart 17 years ago. And she said, why did you choose to wear that shirt today that it's not even yours? He goes, because it looks really good. Because what's important is what you're putting out there. It isn't just about your ego. It's about how do we make the houses look good, the company look good.
In other words, what's in it for the customer?
Absolutely.
It's really not about us.
We draw the clientele that has pride of ownership.
I love that.
The
Say that one more
sellers,
time.
we draw the clientele that has pride of ownership. We draw the sellers and the buyers that have pride of ownership in their real estate and what they own. And they see that the company is owned by a family that has pride of ownership of real estate and pride of ownership of the company and pride of ownership of their agents. And so they expect a little bit more from a Chinowth Cohen agent. And I feel like we give more. I feel like we're more professional, more knowledgeable. And, we have a high standard of integrity here. So I do feel like we, when I go to Brokers Opens and I'll be with Lee Cohen and I'll go, see, got the nicest house in the Brokers Open again. And it's just, we pull that clientele. And we've had agents that have moved on board with us and said, wow, the quality of the buyers that I'm getting now is so totally different. So it's, I think we've raised the bar. And I think that's what she was saying when you brought glamour back to real estate. What she was really saying is you've raised the bar in real estate.
But it's funny too.
Coco Chanel will always be in style. It could be 300 years from now. It's still Coco Chanel.
Right.
It's classic.
Right. But it changes and slightly, but the company stays consistent. The culture, especially.
Yes.
I think like when you and Lee won the Lifetime Achievement Award with luxury real estate in Washington, D.C. And it was, first of all, it was an amazing trip. I mean, to get to be there was just so great, and to meet the people that, from all these other markets. But what was so amazing is like watching the people from Washington, D.C., from New York City, from
Puerto Rico, Europe.
Yeah, all of them. And you guys were talking about how you do the company. And I mean, they were just scribbling and writing like, and like aha moments. I think so much of the time we have this kind of identity crisis because it's our hometown, it's our company. But like there is a real recognition of what we're doing in our company. It's setting trends
on a
national level. And I mean, it's really easy to kind of go, well, that's just a local blah, blah, blah. But when you really step outside and you go and you look at it, and I know you guys, a lot of times you're doing so many national things that no one really even knows about, but you're doing those national things because then you pull that information back too that you're garnering, but you're also giving it out.
And you're willing to share it at our sales meetings.
Right.
I think our sales meetings are super important.
But talking about pride of ownership, like for me to sit there, what a prideful moment for me to see that my company is this company and how it is looked at. I mean, that was really an aha moment for me, that it's really a cool thing that this all grew out of Tulsa.
Right.
And out of closed doors.
Right. Well, we actually, I mean, we sit on a lot of national boards and belong to a lot of committees, and we think it's really important. And we try to keep two owners in town and two different things that are going on constant. I mean, a lot of times all four of us are here, but we always try to stay. We feel like having education and staying ahead of the curve and keeping the agents ahead of the curve, and then being able to tell their buyers and their sellers, this is what's coming. We know, I mean, we go to meetings where they go, this is what's happening in California and New York. And they'll have economists there that they fly in and they'll tell you, and this is the day it's going to hit Tulsa. And you're just like, ready, you're ready for whatever the markets, I don't know how many sales meetings have I said, it's interest rates going to change by this date. This is when this is going to happen. That, this is when prices are going to start going up. This is when prices are going to start declining. This is when things are going to change. I mean, us being able to do that keeps our clientele, ahead of everything else that's going on. I think that's a responsibility that we take seriously. And I wouldn't have it.
I think it's also, and I think, Leland talked about we're a lagging, it happens on the coast and then it kind of happens to us. It lags behind a little bit, and it does feel like that's speeding up a lot.
It is.
I think we're becoming kind of like accents are kind of going away because of everybody sort of paying attention to the same thing and listening to the same thing. So
and social media, in real time.
But right now, what we're having too, and I think it's an interesting thing, is that Tulsa is growing so quickly. Oklahoma is really getting a lot more populated because people are coming from the coast, or they're coming from other places to be here because of the cost of living and the quality of life and those things. So how is that affecting the company? Are you seeing a lot of growth because of that?
There's a lot of people. We have offices also in Oklahoma City. It is crazy how many people are transferring into Oklahoma City, but also Tulsa. And I thought, a lot of people are coming in from. It's like the edges are folding into the middle. Is what it is like.
Yeah.
We're no longer just a flyover state.
Right. Right.
I used to think the coast would be like, oh, I just fly over Oklahoma. I don't actually stop there. That's changing.
It is changing. It's interesting with everything that's been going on in the industry recently that we hear so much in the media that says, well, they're trying to make real estate here more like it is in Europe. And you're like, oh my God.
Please no.
Obviously, you haven't been. So Lee and I were asked to fly with Real Trends asked 50 of what they considered of the leaders in the industry and future leaders to come and fly. We went with Steve Murray himself that owned Real Trends, flew to Portugal, and he brought in all these companies from Europe. And we sat down with them to try to say, okay, what are you doing that we need? And what are we doing that you need? And by the end of it, we're like, we don't y'all are a mess over there. Yeah, there is
Just
no
stay over
MLS.
there, hard
It
pass.
really
Right,
is.
yeah,
I have
yeah.
friends who have gone and tried to buy it in Europe, and they were like,
They
Could not
gazump.
crack
Have
the
you heard of
code.
gazump? They gazump over there. So you can have a
Gazump.
I've
Uh-huh.
never heard that
I've
word
never
before.
Oh yeah. It's huge in England, but other parts of Europe also. So you can have a contract on a house, and you could be up to the day of closing. And if someone comes in and offers more, the seller can back out on your deal. You can have your truck loaded.
Heck
You know?
no.
Yeah, that gazump. And so Europe they don't have an MLS. So real estate companies they're paying anywhere $500,000 to $1 million a year to Zillow. And they were like, we're screaming for help us,
Mhm.
And so we were all trying to, and same kind of thing, brought in economists and everything that, Steve Murray was still the best in the industry and had access to the most brilliant people and brought them all in. And we're sitting there, and all of us from America were going, please don't ever let us go down that road. And now you're hearing in the media, they want us to be like Europe. You're like, no, you really,
Please don't do
really don't.
And before we step into hot topics of today, let's talk about the only reason I am here at Chinowth Cohen to begin with. Jack and John were social media clients. I got my license, and they said, before you pick anywhere to go, you have to meet Sheryl. And literally that meeting with the four of us, I'm like, well, I know where I'm joining. And then you've mentored me
I wish
since
Jack
then.
had been that way.
Yeah.
Oops.
John was, I'm coming. Jack's like, oh, I don't care where I'm at.
Oh, I did not say I don't care where I'm at. I'm very loyal. Like, I'm a very loyal person.
I get it.
So, yeah.
And I think that's one reason we all get along so well. We are very loyal, almost to a fault. But